You're listening to Sips of Sanity, your toolkit for emotional and intuitive intelligence, or what we like to call the dirty work. Let's do it.
Hello, patrons, and hello, Kelly.
Hello, Karen. My belongingness source.
That's good. Right. I guess we could just start right there by just saying they all know what belonging is because they are part of a group that has a common desire. Mm-hmm. And it partly, I would imagine, it is to belong to something where you know that other people share a same interest, a same goal, a same desire.
A value.
Yeah, something of value too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you're saying a value as well, and I want to add of value to you. And that's the key thing. That belongingness is all about something of value to you. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're looking for in another person. You're looking to say, hey, through conversation or experience, can I see if we value something that is similar? And then based on that, the feelings that we feel when we engage in talking about it or having an experience based around it will produce those feelings that I want to feel.
Yeah, so if I go back to my classroom experience that I used on day 4, and we think about active participation in a class where you're asking questions and, vocalizing your observations or your wonderings, let's say, and a teacher or a facilitator says to you, your contributions are so valuable. I appreciate the way you show up in class, right? There's a validating experience there that says you belong here. I'm acknowledging it. I value your presence here as much as I hope you value being here. Mm-hmm. That's what a relationship of any kind should say.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh my goodness. So I guess to the opposite of that if anybody is listening to this and they withhold that type of conversation from somebody in their personal family or their close group of friends or whatever it is that you hold dear to yourself, if you withhold validating those things in the other, then you're not contributing to a sense of belonging for the other. You may have it, but you are not reciprocating it. And so we will kindly invite you to, do what we do on Sips of Sanity, increase your level of emotional intelligence and your levels of self-awareness. And maybe you turn to somebody today that you have a conversation with on Friday or through the coming weekend, and make a point of validating somebody so that the connection that you feel to each other is reciprocated.
Mm-hmm. And one of the forms of belongingness can and should be considered money. Right? When you're working for a company, when you're working for a small business, a boss, whoever, and they will not pay you what you're worth, they are saying, you don't belong here. I'm going to squeeze everything I can from you until you realize you don't belong here. Does that make sense? I'm wording it that way on purpose because you can be contributing things of value. You can be an asset to their team in every possible way. And that message is still, you don't belong here. I'll take everything I can get from you until you realize that.
Kelly, just as you were telling me that, I was thinking about a friend that said to me one day, oh, there's a gentleman I'd like you to meet. Are you dating? Are you open to it? And I just listened. I thought, well, I don't know. I'm not certain I am or I'm not. Talk more. And she said, well, he's this and he's that. No, she wasn't telling me what he did for a living or anything like that. She was just talking about him a little bit. And then she said, well, he has a lot of money. And, well, from what he has said, he wants his money to be his money and your money to be your money. And if you aren't in the same financial situation as him, then I don't think it's going to be a good match.
Why are you talking to me?
That is exactly. And I just thought, what? There was such
That's your screening process?
yeah, that there was such a moment there for me of, oh, well, that's a red flag. No, thank you. I'm not interested then. And I don't mean because, ooh, I want his money.
Also, you didn't word it in a way of, oh, I don't qualify. You said, I don't want that situation. Thank you.
Yeah. And when you just brought up belongingness goes to including money, it just made me think of that conversation right off the bat of where somebody is going to say, well, I might consider you for my lifelong partner.
Tell you that I love you. Share my life with you, but don't touch my fucking money.
Yes.
There's an element of you don't belong here.
Yes. A huge element. And I'm hoping that you're not going to notice that. And to me, it was just like, well, that just can't even be interested in something like that. But I am hearing that kind of conversation more and more in the last maybe 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so coming from an individual who's in a partnership, a committed partnership where our finances are completely separate, that is a red flag to me, right? And I want to illustrate two different situations. We've had conversations that our money stays separate, that we make decisions of when we are going to go halvesies on things that will belong to both of us, right?
Yeah,
We equally pay into the mortgage. We equally pay into bills. We had a conversation about what equality looks like, and if we couldn't do 50-50 in terms of finances, that we'd have a conversation about how we can and want to support the other person. So if it has to be 60-40 1 month, okay, we will have that conversation and make sure we're both consenting parties, right? But to say up front, red flag, you have to be in the same financial situation as me or I don't value your worth. I want to tear apart the elements of what we're talking about so that people don't think, well, my husband and I have two different bank accounts. Like, is that a red flag? No, that's independence.
No. Yeah, that's
right.
right.
If you're going about it properly, that's healthy.
Anyway, yeah, I just thought of that when you
fucked.
when you were saying that. I just
That's
thought,
a good to know moment.
yeah, I just thought, well, how do you belong to each other? Like,
Yeah.
what? Anyway, we can certainly continue here.
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to go in a direction of like, I have to make more than you so that you belong to me in terms of property and ownership. And that's not what we're talking about.
Yes.
We're coming back to the place of how do you emotionally, healthily belong to something and someone, right? To a community, to a partnership, to any kind of dynamic.
Yeah, because I think about when you belong to somebody and there's a deep connection to each other, there's no loneliness going on. You have to be vulnerable. And vulnerability can be in all aspects of life if it's a personal relationship. I want to consider there that we could be talking, or people could be thinking, well, wait a minute, what about jobs? What about...
The vulnerability still has to exist in all of those things. You have to be vulnerable to suck at something in order to gain a new skill, or a skill that is better than it was yesterday, right? Like, vulnerability is always something that you're going to experience in a day.
Yeah, I purposely work at making a connection with my clients, in particular when they say to me, and this happened yesterday, funny as could be because she asked me 5 questions in a row I refused to answer. But the client said things to me like, boy or girl, and I went, oh, I suck at that. Since there's been gender changes and I don't feel comfortable doing it anymore, I'm going to leave it be. Okay, well, what about when is my mother-in-law going to die? She's getting close. We just want to know date and time. And I went,
No.
Oh, no, I don't do that either. That's a boundary crossing. All right. Well, then could you ask my dead husband if I'm going to win a lottery?
Okay, this lady's got some serious red flags about her own boundaries.
Oh, and I went, oh, I don't do lottery numbers. I said, like, I've never even heard of calling an intuitive and saying, can I have the next lotto numbers? Like I said, I don't do that. And she goes, okay, well, what about my stocks and my finances? When do I buy and when do I sell? Which stock should I buy next? And I went, no, I don't do that either.
Could you, okay, so, sorry.
Wait, I'm just going to finish. And I said, you've just hit 5 out of 5. of my boundaries that I refused to use my gifts for. And then she just looked at me, and we had a moment there, Kelly, where it could have just been an absolute shit show of a session.
Yeah.
And she could have been, I want my money back. I'm not talking to you. Don't even know what you're doing, because, that's how we get talked to. And she looked at me and she burst out laughing, and she went, am I your worst client?
A little bit.
And I went, yeah, you are. And we died laughing. And she goes, okay, how do I turn this around?
Nice.
She goes, because I booked 90 minutes with you and I've hit 5 boundaries in the first 5 minutes. This can only get better, Karen. I used that as a moment to laugh with her, to discuss why those are boundaries and why I don't want to do something like that to affect people's finances, how things can fluctuate or whatever. And I used that as a moment to actually connect to her. And then moved into, and these are the things that I can do for you. So I'm just saying, sometimes when we know what our boundaries are and we bring them up, it is still a moment of great connection.
Yeah, and this is a really cool example of belongingness to a professional relationship.
Yes.
I can walk into a session with my medium or psychic and feel a sense of belongingness because I'm validated. My feelings are honored here, right? There is space for me to be real, to ask hard questions, to experience different emotions within myself. You as a professional can create a sense of belongingness, and you as a client can experience it with a healthy professional. And that's important because we need professionals on our health teams, right? Including your financial advisor. I want to belong in that office with them where I know that they're going to educate me and elevate my level of education, because I'm definitely not ever going to be where they're at, right? But I want to belong with them so that we can offer one another what we have to offer.
And I want to end that little story, and thank you for explaining that. I did an okay job, because at the end of the 90 minutes, she said to me, I loved my session past my blundered first 5 minutes. I'm definitely calling back several times. Now I understand how you work the sessions and why you have the boundaries and why you are doing what you are doing. You're not trying to give people just flippant answers. You're trying to get them into deeper levels of understanding themselves with the spirit world. And I went, oh, good. So we did. We were actually able to take that and make a great connection together.
So if we take that into your personal life, if you're just giving people answers to give them responses, then you may not be elaborating. You may not be offering much to connect to. How was your day? Good. Did you enjoy yourself at work today? Yes. Are you... what are you up to tonight? Soccer, right? Okay, now we're back up to a level of intimacy that is just about facts, right? And we aren't moving into any kind of opinions or feelings or hopes and dreams, needs, etc. To be able to say, we belong together. I feel like I belong to you, and I'm showing you that by telling you what I'm looking forward to in a day, right? We've gone right back up into just facts to create a feeling of, do we belong together as a couple? Does my kid feel connected to me like they belong to me outside of the fact that I gave birth to them? Right? There's opportunity everywhere if you're willing to see it and take it.
Okay, I'm going to go to an unhealthy version, just to give an example. Your grandfather.
Oh, yeah.
My ex-father-in-law, who's passed away now, whenever we would go over there, he would say things upon walking in the door, walking in with you and your brother and your father. And he would always say to me when he came to the door, hello, Karen, one thing about Kelly. And I was supposed to say one thing about you, one thing about Andrew, and only one thing. And then he wouldn't say, tell me one thing about you, or to me personally, after I said one thing about Andrew and one thing about you, he turned around and walk in to the living room and have a visit with the guys in the family. Even though the grandchildren and the women were all present, his entire conversation was directed towards his 2 sons. And there was no way I think, I'll just speak for myself here. I won't say how you and Andrew would feel about that family, that kind of response.
Well, the message is you don't belong here.
Yes. So there was never a feeling for me of belonging in my in-laws' family.
Right.
because there was no sense of talk to me about yourself. There wasn't even one. I was afforded one response for each of my children and zero about myself.
And then what happens from there is, okay, the women in the room receive the message that you don't belong and you never will belong. And the young male grandchildren receive the message that one day you could fit in.
Yes.
But here's what is required of you to fit in.
Right. Because you're not going to belong. You're just going to fit in.
And exactly. And you will have to play along with the fact that the women don't belong here. You'll have to play along with the fact that we keep things surface level. You'll have to play along with the fact that, right? And so this there's just no opportunity for belongingness at that point, right? Because we're saying here are the boundaries where we can't ever truly connect, abide by them.
Mm-hmm. And this is old. And by the way, that lasted for 28 years. So this was nothing that ever was changing. There was no emotional maturity. There was no emotional development. And I wanted just to use that as an example because he's passed away. It's long in the past. It's gone now.
It's not long in the past. The message lives on.
Well, I was just going to say
the message doesn't die when the physical environment changes.
Yeah.
It's still a subconscious message that you have to fight.
Right. So then let's continue with that. So now when people, I'll say in that group, now try to reach out, say to you or to your brother, or well, I won't go to me because that's not happening. But if they tried to reach out to you guys, how do you turn around and say, I want to fit in?
Or how do you
because there's no chance that I'm ever going to belong.
Yeah.
So really what you're offering me is no sense of belonging, no sense of true connection, no sense of this loneliness feeling ever being abated in this group. So that looks rich. That looks awesome. If, being facetious, none of that actually looks appealing, right? So the only thing you're putting on the table is that you're asking me, well, if I put out an olive branch to you, the only thing we can really offer you is that you're going to have to work at fitting in.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, please, guys, draw your own parallels. Like if this is you sitting at your dinner table with your aging parents and the unspoken agreement is we cater to mom's emotions or we cater to dad's anger or we cater to the youngest sibling's addictions, right? Like this is the story that's being played out, the message that is being given of there is or isn't an opportunity for belonging. And if there isn't, there's only an opportunity to fit in. Mm-hmm. And then what do you have to compromise in order to do that?
Exactly.
Cool. I loved this series.
Me too. I was so excited to do it. And I want to say that the way we came to this was I've been reading Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, and she covers tons of issues, and she does tons of study and research around belonging and all of these different things, loneliness, connections, tied into shame as well. She's huge on that, and that is a book that I'm reading to consider for book club.
It'll be in there.
I think it absolutely will be at some point.
2023 lineup.
It's a big book.
Yeah.
It would take us definitely more than 4 or 5 weeks, but it may really be well worth it. And hopefully these types of conversations on Sips of Sanity will get you excited to read a book like that and to continue to be part of a club like this that brings this type of textured content.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you for all your hard work and your contribution to the conversation.
Same.